Welcome to Annamalai University Directorate of Distance Education, Management Wing. I am Professor A.SELVARASU, the coordinator of Management Wing and Wing Head. Today we are going to see organizational behavior as a course common to MBA program, especially in dual M program, human resource management, marketing management, financial management, and for other programs, the topics of organizational behavior would be of interest. Organizational behavior comprises of 6 units. The first unit is about introduction to organizational behavior. The second unit talks about individual behavior. Third unit is about group behavior. Fourth unit is about leadership as a part of team or organizational context. And fifth unit is about organizational change management and development. And sixth unit is about organizational structure, climate, and culture. All these 6 units have been covered into 24 lessons. And each lesson focuses on the unit subtopics. For example, Introduction to Organizational Behavior comprises of 4 lessons, and subsequently Unit 2 Individual Behavior, again lesson starts from 5th to 8th. Likewise, each unit is focused with 4 lessons to cover all the minor topics and major topics pertaining to the units. And we are going to see the first unit, OB. Normally, organizational behavior, the acronym goes with OB. When we say OB, people used to recognize very easily what is called organizational behavior. The organizational behavior, first we are going to see meaning and definition. The organizational behavior, as I briefed in the syllabus structure, it comprises of individual behavior, which is human behavior as an independent organism. Then we go into the group behavior, otherwise we termed it as teams. In an organization, we normally see teams or departments or divisions. So, how people work together to achieve a sub-target or a focused target. Likewise, the group comprises of individuals. Simultaneously, the organization structure comprises of as many groups as possible, and each group is of department in nature, division in nature, regional in nature. Altogether, it is all members. The members of the groups are individuals, and therefore organizational behavior is easily understood by way of learning about individual behavior, group behavior, and organizational climate as a whole, or organizational structure as a whole. Let's have an understanding about one of the definitions for our reference. Stephen P. Robbins, the pioneering author of organizational behavior, has defined the meaning and context of organizational behavior. So, he has defined OB is as a systematic study of actions and attitude that people exhibit in an organization. One part is actions, the other part is attitude. Actions means activities that we carry out in an organization formally. When we say the activities which are assigned to an employee, he has to perform in an organization to accomplish his task and to establish his worth in an organization. And while doing these activities, how he is able to keep up his attitude for the work, not against the work, but for the work, towards accomplishing the works for the benefit of the organization, for the benefit of the people in the organization, and not only in the organization and also in the public as such, market as such. So he has taken two things into account. One is action. While you perform the actions, how are you maintaining your attitude? So it's all about combining the actions as well as the attitude of an individual in a systematic way. We study how he is performing his activities. So it's a very brief and simple definition that takes care of organizational behavior, meaning and definition. So I repeat, OB is as a systematic study of actions and attitude that people exhibit in an organization. The other parts are, it's all about human behavior or individual behavior. Individual as a human. So when we say individual, it represents a person who is part and parcel of the organization. Normally we term them as an employee. So employee in an organization could be studied from the context of biological. Biological means the structure, physique, and how he is genetically performing his role and responsibilities. Physically, how he is keeping up his physique in an organization to take up all the assignments. The second aspect is emotional. So while the physical structure is independent and emotional structure is more of attitude and other feelings and emotions connected. So when we say a person is emotional, so he may be happy. So when he is happy or when he is satisfied, his emotions are expressed. So when we say he is happy, we are reading him in the context of emotion. It is not connected with the physique. So emotionally, how he is able to maintain his stay in an organization. Normally an organization looks forward all the time, positive way of accepting the assignments in an organization. So we say it's about emotional content of an individual, and it could be further defined as emotional intelligence. It's not that emotional. So how best we study and express emotions could be termed as emotional intelligence. So individual behavior beyond biological study, biological characteristics, it's all about emotional intelligence. And then we go into the aspect of learning. So an individual is able to cognize things, apply his mind, and pick up the context in which he is being given instructions. So that is called as learned behavior. So it's not that an individual who is biologically born and individually maintaining his emotions and exhibiting his intelligence, he could also be put into learned behavior, subject to learned behaviors. So he can be part of an individual who can be given instructions, so he can be given knowledge, who can be given educated, and all that learned behavior can also be studied, whether he is able to pick up the guidelines given by the organization in a positive note. And the other things could be motivational, self-motivation, or organizationally how he is motivating himself to take up the assignment in a positive way. And finally, it's about decision-making skills, how an individual is able to decide. So decision-making is a key. So when the issue or the problem is inevitable in an organization, so given the context of a problem or an issue, how he is able to make a decision, so which is right or which is wrong, or among the existing best alternatives, is he able to choose the best alternative? So given a context like conditions or business scenario is changing, and the learned skills at the time of entering into an organization could be of to that period, restrained to that period. But over the years, if an individual is working in an organization where technological development is taking place and technology adoption is taking place. Organization is partially, introducing mechanical devices, and how he is able to cope up with these conditions. He is able to decide whether to learn more about technology and stay in an organization and make contributions to the organization, or he can stay himself. This is what I know, this is what I am capable, and this is what my best skills. An individual could stay with the best skills and he is able to perform all the tasks with the basic skills that he has acquired before entering into an organization. That is also quite possible. So he has to make a decision whether the basic skills he has attained before entering into the organization is wise, or adapting to the new technology and going with an organization as the phases of organization keep changing, to learn better and to learn new things and go ahead in the organization. So he has to make a decision on that ground. So the best alternatives he can decide whether to stay with the basic skills or to go with an updated skills. That's how an individual behavior could be studied, whether he is able to make decision on his own, whether he is able to motivate by himself, whether he is able to put himself into a learned behavior, whether he is able to enhance emotional intelligence, whether he is able to keep up physical fitness for his stay in the organization. So that's all about individual or human behavior. And coming to the next important component is called group behavior. We normally, in an organizational behavior, we term this group behavior as group dynamics, because there are more individuals or more members come together and perform the task, and that we call it as group dynamics, because the individual can stay input or stay intact with his behavior, but when he is moving into a group, his behavior might change. So in that context, an individual is finding it very difficult to constrain his behavior when he is put into a group. And therefore, it is not constant, it is keep changing. His behavior is keep changing, and therefore we say it's group dynamics. Kurt Lewin has termed this group dynamics, and group dynamics, how he is performing when the other individual is put into interaction, how he is able to perform his behavior. Is he changing his behavior, or is able to stay with his behavior, or is allowing for the interaction? So the first component is transactional analysis, or we call it as TA analysis. TA, transactional analysis, is an important topic when it comes to group behavior, and that transactional analysis, we will be studying in detail how an individual is behaving when he is a child, adult and parent. So the human lifestyle could be put into three phases: as a child, as an adult, as a parent. So when the one person is staying as a childhood phase, when the other person coming in contact with an interaction, whether is he maintaining the same childhood behavior, or is he maintaining adulthood behavior, or is he maintaining parenthood behavior? So there is a quite possibility that an individual in an organization could exhibit any of the three characteristics and the other person could also, if he is matching, if a first person is able to maintain childhood behavior, the other person is able to make keep up the childhood behavior, there will be a smooth communication process. On the other hand, if the first person is able to maintain adulthood phase, the other person is maintaining childhood phase, there will be a cross communication. And if he is a parent in childhood, there will be an ulterior communication. So there is a possibility that the communication could not flow in a way it is expected. When the group is prevailing in an organization, there is always better to study about what kind of communication is going on. Is it a smooth communication, as a cross communication, or an ulterior communication? That way, transaction analysis is an important topic for group dynamics. Similarly, we come to relationships. So relationships could be interrelationships, intra-relationships, intergroup relationships. People from one group and people in the other group have to interact together. So the relation should be slightly entangled, because one group can have a different task and different basic skills and different characteristics. The other group could also have a different character. For example, an administrative team, when they talk to a work group in a manufacturing plant, the communication could be different. So the relationship depends upon how each group members come together and keep up their communication relationships. So when they do so, there is every possibility that there will be an agreement and disagreement. If there is a disagreement, we call it as conflict. So that has to be sorted out. Or if the conflict is not resolved, people get into stress. So people find it difficult to cope up with their skills. And therefore, the topic of importance becomes stress of an individual when they are staying in a group. That has to be addressed. And communication also important. What type of communication is taking place with the backward communication, forward communication, cross communication, how they maintain their communication. That's again an important topic of interest when it comes to group dynamics. Again, we have powers and politics. When people stay in an organization, different levels normally we say in an organization. You might have studied in the principles of management as a subject of interest. The top level, middle level, and the employee level, we could have a different authority. When the authority is bestowed with an individual, power can be exhibited. So the top person, when they communicate with a person in the third layer, the person in the third layer could see his authority as limited, and the person in the top level, the authority would be on the higher side. So therefore, he would see it as a power. When the authority vested with the person in the top level could be seen as a power, and sometimes the power can be interpreted in a way politics. So person may be of good understanding, be preferred by the top level management, but the person who is looking at from the outside, he could think it as a politics. Similarly, the other topic of interest would be leadership. How an individual in a group is leading the team, or team leader, or team head, or group head, head of the department. So that way, leadership is an important topic when it comes to group dynamic, because the leader has to carry on the task of all the members, or give instruction to all the members to accomplish a group task. So in that way, leadership topic becomes a topic of interest to us. And then the third component is organizational dynamics. Organizational dynamics is when we teach a simulation game from the Harvard Business School education publications. We have taken a online traveling agency, OTA, which is a simulation available in the Harvard Business School website. And as a educator from an university, we are given a privilege to access it, and we would add you as a co-teach member if you can take part in the trial of the simulation. And if you are interested, really, you can pay for it and experience this simulation of organizational structure. I'll just put in a nutshell. Organizational structure is a very, when you begin a company, when you start a company as an entrepreneur, you may start with 5 members or few members, and you can count them, who are all the members of the organization, who are all the stakeholders of the organization. So when you start a company as an entrepreneur, it will be very small, and everyone will be having an independent authority, and they can exercise. When the company grows into, let's say, 50 members, 5 to 50 members, how the organization principles and theories can be applied to redesign the organizational structure. Similarly, when the company expands from 50 to 500, what all the principles of management could be adopted, or the levers, we say levers of an organizational structure, how you could apply these levers to change the organizational structure and redesign the organizational structure to suit the orders coming into the organization. Maybe the volume of the orders would be slightly higher, and how you can allocate the orders to group members and accordingly redesign the organization to fit into the performing the task. And that way the topic of interest would be dealt with a simulation game. And management of change, as I told you, when the organizational structure moves from 5 to 50, 50 to 500, 500 to 1600 and odd, the structure would drastically change, and there we introduce the concept of management of change. So when the leader or the chief executive officer of a company or the managing director of the company or the top man who leads the whole organization would be of keep changing in an organization, maybe 3 years time or 5 years time, depending upon the performance and his willingness to stay in the company. So that accommodates the topic of management of change, and how he is able to take the organization into a developing an organization itself. OD interventions, we call it as OD interventions, organizational development intervention. Some of the strategies we need to introduce so that the organizational development takes place from one particular stream of action to the different stream of action. So that way organizational structure, organizational change, organizational development could be of interest in organizational dynamics. So the last topic would be organizational behavior models. A very simple model is you describe the scenario, you understand the scenario, you predict the future course of action and how you control it. So we would say DUPC. DUPC. DUPC is a simple model of organizational behavior, which is describe, understand, predict and control. Now we'll go into the topic of development of organizational behavior. How this organizational behavior as a subject of interest has evolved over the years. It starts with Adam Smith's contribution, Charles Babbage, his contribution, classical era of F.W. Frederick Winslow Taylor, his contribution, and administrative theory inducted by Henry Fayol and a team of members who has contributed towards the construction of principles of management, and structural theory given by Max Weber, and social man theory which is given by Mary Parker Follett. And the behavioral era commenced, the people side of behavioral era commenced. So we would slightly look upon what Adam Smith has raised as an organizational behavior. The key lever for organizational behavior given by Adam Smith was productivity. Division of labor raises productivity. That's what his contributions. He wanted to see the organization from the perspective of productivity. So how you raise the productivity per an individual, per labor, what would be the outcome? So productivity is nothing but output by input. How much input you give and how much output you draw from it. So that way Adam Smith has given direction for division of labor that raises productivity. So that's where the commencement of organizational behavior context started. And the Charles Babbage, who is the father of your computer, he has focused more on specialization of work. And likewise Robert Brown, he also focused the content of spending money to enhance the labor productivity or to enhance the value of labor in an organization. So which in otherwise we call it as specialization of work. So work has to be specialized. An individual should have a specialized skill to perform the task. So that is the second contribution. Third one could be the scientific principles of management could be introduced in the organizational structure. So you design the structure into a system. So organization could be considered as a system. So when you structure the system takes care of the survival of an organization, which is otherwise called as scientific management by Frederick Winslow Taylor. So individual can be selected and you can give training and you can teach them and you can develop them as a worker and make them to cooperate with other workers, divide work and responsibility equally so that they feel the spirit of management. So the pride of managing the organization, that also should be an equal importance. So take an individual, train him, put him into a structure, and give him an equal importance of management as well as the feeling of worker. So put together or treat them equally so that the organization can move on. The third contribution on the administrative theory is about Henry Fayol has contributed planning, organizing, controlling, coordination, control, and all that he has contributed in the first stage. And subsequently he has introduced 14 principles of management, which you could have studied in the principles of management or management process as a subject in the first semester itself. And these 14 principles, you can keep an acronym. I would read upon the 14 principles: division of labor, D; authority, A; discipline, D. So I would say DAD, division of labor, authority, discipline. So DAD, DAD. And the other principle is unity of command, unity of direction. So both starts with unity of command and unity of direction, starts with unity. So I take you too. So me too, like we normally use the usage, you can take it as you too. So dad, you too. And then the other principles like remuneration, subordination of individual interest, RS, capital R and capital S, RS, remuneration, subordination of individual interest. So RS. And then the centralization is the next principle. So RSC. RSC. And the next principle is scalar chain. First letter starts with S. The other one is order, equity, stability, initiative, esprit de corps. So esprit de corps is nothing but unity of strength. So I would rather take all these first letter of all these 14 principles and give you an acronym so that you can easily remember. DAD, U2, RS, C. So, C. So, C. So, DAD, DAD, U2, RS, C. So, SO, EC, ESIE. So, 14 principles you can. So, what administrative theory speaks about is you introduce different principles as a component so that organizational behavior can be maintained in a better way. Similarly, we go to the other theory, structural theory. Structural theory is given by Max Weber. So, it talks about you make the components like hierarchical structure. A structure has to have a hierarchical structure, and it should have formal structure, and it should have rules, it should have impersonality, and it should have orientation to the betterment of an employee, and ultimately it should give a job satisfaction. So it's a hierarchy should be maintained in an organization structure, and therefore the organization structure become intact and stay long. And the next theory is social man theory, given by Mary Parker Follett. It's all about how you make cooperation, society, all the members come together, give strength. Everybody should join hands together and give strength, and therefore you move on. So you move collectively as a society. So you may be part of organization, but where is the organization staying? The organization again, it is established in the society. So society, one component is an organization, and in that organization you stay as a man. So social man theory speaks about how you bring all the members of the society together and move forward. That's given by Chester I. Bernard, and Mary Parker Follett also gave importance to authority, motivation, leader and power. So when all these are given equally shared among members of the society, so you stay together, and therefore organization has been taken care. And the last and the commencement of behavioral era, it's not all about the structure, the principles, or you making a individual and training them, or you make a specialization. All that is okay. What is important is treat man as a man, give importance to his behavior, and that's you treat him as a people. It's not your own asset, but is ultimately part of the society, part of the public, and therefore public side of the behavior era started. That's where the organizational behavior has come in place, and we give importance to individual behavior, and the same individual, when he is in a group, how he is behaving himself. And that is the second important thing, when how the groups together is given importance in the organization to take it forward and to grow and to move in a better way. So that's how the organizational behavior is introduced. And the challenges of organization is how you maintain the organization as a system. So you have open-ended system and close-ended system, where open-ended system means people have an independent authority. You need not report to others. You take task by yourself and perform. In the present day industry, information technology and computer era, we see people are given independent tasks. They look for nature of assignments, and they are given freedom to decide and complete the task. That is where you see open system, and many of the organizations are not open. It's all closed system. Any manufacturing organization, the power electricity supplying or a distribution company or a manufacturing company, and all of them are closed structure. So they have a different specified rules, regulation and law which controls their powers, responsibility and all that. Similarly, you have independence in the organization, or interdependence in the organization, or homeostasis in the organization, giving importance to the human side of it. And non-summative, you need not group together, not possible to give a structure. In that way, system has evolved, organizational system has evolved over the years. And then social technical, as I told you in the beginning, how much share of manpower as an individual or a human being is introduced in an organization, and how much technology or the robotics today, how much importance we give it to the mechanized component of the organizational, whether it is 60-40 or 70-30 or 50-50. And nowadays it is more of robotics. Even our life partner in Japan happens to be a robot. So that way the mechanical side has come into the individual life. It's also in that way socio-technical interventions, how it is keeping the individual to stay in an organization. And we see challenges, structure, technology, jobs, process and external environment all together as challenges of the organization. And now we are coming to the pure models. There are 7 models that talks about organizational behavior. One is feudal model, and the other one is autocratic model. Third is custodial model. Fourth is supportive model. Fifth is collegial model. Sixth is human value model, and seventh is contingency model. So I'll just give a glimpse of it, and probably you can learn it from our lesson and the self-learning materials. You can learn much better on these topics. Feudal model is treating employees as much as possible inferior. Don't give it more importance, and therefore you can easily fire them, hire them, fire them out, and layoff is easy. If you give importance to an employee equally or superior, then you are not in a position to send them out. And that way the feudal model is giving importance to employee in an inferior part of it, so that you can easily fire them out. And the second model, autocratic model, is about managers or superior on the other side. The first model is about employee, the second model is about managers. Managers are given more priority or importance as superior, as a force, and the higher salary given to employee is a waste. Again a similar treatment, but who is doing that is given in this model as an autocratic model. Third model, custodial model, is owner and has to give equal importance to manager as well as employee, and he has to redress all the grievances given by employee as well as the manager, and try to secure their stay in the organization, be a custodian of all, both the manager as well as employee. And the fourth model, supportive model, is employees are active and leader motivate their values. So what is important is, every human individual has a value and their lifestyles, and therefore you should give importance to their lifestyle as well as values. The way they keep up their life in the organization, and the way they establish their values in a society, or their beliefs, cultural values, or family values, or individual value, all that has to be given importance by the organization. And the collegial model is making an employee as a partner. Even Infosys companies like that, they have come in with the golden handshake, as well as the employee stock option schemes, giving employee as the stakeholder of the company by providing shares of the company. So that way they become a partners of the company. So combined effort will be there, and therefore the organization can perform in a better way. And the other side is human value model, which is SOBC model, or otherwise stimulus, organism, behavior, consequence model, which has extrinsic as well as intrinsic value and motivate the employees to perform better. So you have to have a receptive behavior. For every stimulus, the organization will exhibit a consequence, and that has to be studied. What kind of stimulus is given and how you exhibit your consequences in the organization. So that way it can be studied. And then you have a contingency model. Last model is contingency model. Contingency model is a change in an organizational structure, as I told you about redesigning and designing of organizational structure in the simulation of Harvard Business School's case simulation exercise. The structure can change. So when there is a change, there will be resistance of change, and sometimes people accept the change easily. So in that way, contingency model has to be exhibited, where there is a cooperation, trust of well-being will also be there. Now, some of the factors and constraints of organizational behavior are could be treated as external versus internal, demographics, conflict, abilities, skills, perception, managerial personnel, deficiencies in an organization, workforce, and all that put together can one set of factors. And there is another factor which is called dependent factors, which are productivity, job satisfaction, absenteeism, turnover of an individual, versus independent variables like individual, group environment, on all that. So these are some of the factors which are grouped and very well detailed in the self-learning materials, and we could also learn better. And then we have constraints too: organizational and job factors versus individual factors. Organization, job factor, and individual factors put together could also behave as a constraint. And the individual dimensions of organizational behavior is about emotional. So it's about, as I told you about biological and emotional, it's about emotional component we study in a detailed manner. So that we call it as emotional intelligence. And there are three sets of theories that talks about emotional intelligence. One is ability model. The other one is Daniel Goleman's mixed model, and the third one is trait model. There are three models which talks about emotional intelligence, and the Daniel Goleman's mixed model will be of much interest to all of us, because that is the model which takes care of the other two models. So in the mixed model, it's about components are self-awareness and self-regulations. Similarly, social awareness and social regulations. So how do you keep yourself by keeping yourself abreast of what is happening around? That's called social self-awareness. And how you regulate yourself to take care of the your stay in the organization. Similarly, social awareness and social regulation, that is being dealt with social skills, empathy, and motivation. So with this, we have come to a briefing about almost 5 units or 5 lessons of the organizational behavior. We would be looking forward to join in the next video. Thank you very much. Thank you.